Hello, my name is Scott, and this is the English version of my Broken Arrow tutorial. And at the beginning, I want to give you a little overview of what we are going to create. So in this scenario, there are two parts. In the first part, the player has to capture Objective A, which is protected by enemy units in buildings. After he has captured Objective A, the second part unlocks, in which the player has to destroy an enemy unit as a secondary task, and again as a primary task to capture point B, which is also protected by units and buildings. But there are also enemy units in the back that spawn, move into this little village. Troop transports will unload their troops. The troops are going into the buildings, and then the transports will patrol randomly around the streets in that village. And on a harder difficulty, there are tougher vehicles spawning and also patrolling in this area. So I'm showing you also how to set up different difficulties. And I want to show you how to set up this for multiple players, how you do that. And the goal is to give you an overall, to give you maybe a basic understanding of this editor, to show you a little bit of everything, but of course not all of it. And the good part is you can scale this up as large as you want. You can add multiple objectives, you can add as much tasks and units as you want, just by simply copy and pasting. Of course, it's not that complex, but for the beginning, we have to keep things simple to give just a fundamental understanding of how this all works. And in the script editor, this is what we are going to create. It looks complicated at the beginning, I know, but we will get through it step by step. So first things first, we have to create our scenario, and we can name it. And put in a description. And now we can choose our map. And I will choose Chklovsk airbase. And then we can just click on create. If nothing is happening, don't worry, it's bugged currently, just restart the game and it will work. And then we just simply click on edit scenario. Once we are loaded in, we begin by putting in our first settings, and we can start on the top left corner and move downwards. So we begin with our scenario config. Here we can change the description if we want. If the enemy should have only one color, we can check this. We want a difficulty selection, so we do this also, and we can disable non-mission editor spawn points. We do that too. We can change our daytime. We keep it at default. Game mode is going to be a multiplayer PvE, but you can play this also as a single player. I show you how to do this later. Currently there is no started playable zone, so I come to this later. We can change music, and for the beginning our debug difficulty is going to be easy, and we can click on apply. In our team manager we can set up our teams. So alpha team is our player team, and we only want to have 2 players, which are going to be US. So we put a deck restriction in. Second is to set up our Bravo team, which in our case is Russia. We will not use a certain deck. We will only use units we put on the map or spawn them, but just in case we can also put deck restriction in there, and this is going to be our AI. So neutral, we do not have any neutral players, so we can just close them also. Then we are going to the task manager and we are going to create our 3 tasks. The first task is to capture A. It's primary and hidden at the beginning. Our second task in our second part is to capture B, and there's, oh sorry, I just messed up the order. So with these arrows we can put them back into order. This doesn't mean anything, it's just to keep it clear. And this is our secondary task, which is to destroy an enemy transport. And that's it. Next thing is to look in our medal manager. You can create medals that are fulfilled by certain conditions. In our case, we leave this because I want to keep it a little bit more simple. It's maybe something for future tutorial. Public options, I have absolutely no idea what to do here. Still learning, so we leave this also. In the editor config, we can configure stuff that has something to do with our editor. So, for example, what I would recommend is to limit camera movement. If you uncheck this, you will move through the map. So if you limit this, you will always stick on the bottom, and by scrolling you move in the direction you're scrolling. So keep this rest unchanged. You can keep this at default. Game config is our game settings. We can keep this, change map. We can do this on the fly if you want. But for now, that's it. So the next thing we have to do is we have to set up our stage. We have to set up the area in which we are going to fight. And I decided to use this area. And we begin by creating our playable zone. If you do not place a playable zone, the game will use the whole map as the playable zone, but sometimes it can be necessary to restrict the player's movement to a certain area. And we are doing this by placing a playable zone. And that's it. By clicking on it and holding your right click, you can rotate it, but currently it's bugged. It will always jump back to its original position. I hope this gets fixed soon. You can also not change its shape, but of course you can change its position and scale. So you can do this by just typing or holding right click and move your mouse left to right to scale this up. Am I in the right spot? yes. So I want this to be a little bit bigger, maybe that big. And now we have created our playable zone. We can lock it to prevent from accidentally clicking it. If we do not do this, we will always click on the playable zone and accidentally move it. So by checking locked, we can not accidentally click zone. So this is our first playable zone. So we can now activate this as our started playable zone. And now we will begin here. For the second part, we just create another playable zone. By Control Z, Control V, you can just copy the existing zone. And we move this zone up here and scale it almost as big as the other zone, because we want this zone to be including zone 1. So that's it. I think that is okay. And now we have set up our second playable zone. We have to activate this later. I'll show you that in a few minutes. So the next thing we are going to place is our spawn point for our friendly units. We do this by using a spawn location, right click to rotate it into the right direction. So this is spawn point 1. We can keep this. It is visible and it is for the alpha team. Here we can select what type of units are going to spawn here. Of course, no ships. And we can also make this locked because we don't want to change this anymore. Now we have to set up a camera, because when you are going to load in the scenario, and if you want to play it, the game is always using the default camera, which is in one of the corner of the map. So we have to set up the start camera. The game will automatically use. And therefore we need a camera and we need a tag. Because we cannot rotate the camera, we can only make it look at a certain tag or vehicle or something else. So we use this camera and this tag to set up our view. So we call this camera tag. We do not need an arrow. And now we are clicking on the camera. And what I do is I just move my camera in the editor at a position I like. Maybe here. And then I try to match this position with the camera. Maybe like this. Now I move this tag maybe here. And now we can activate look to tag, camera tag. And then we can, when you're now moving the camera is always looking to that tag, as you can see. So now we click on preview, and this is the view we are going to start with at the beginning. So it's okay. We want to keep it simple. So we lock this, and activate on startup. You can put in multiple cameras and activate them throughout the scenario, but maybe something for the future. So now we have set up the basics. And now we are going to put in our objectives. So the first objective which is objective A, is going to be here. And therefore, we are placing an objective zone. We call this objective A. Icon will be an A. It is capturable by alpha and bravo. It is not visible at the beginning. The owner team is bravo, the enemy, and it is a box. I'm now placing this correctly. This we can rotate. So I'm placing this maybe like so. And you can also look this. So this is objective A in the first part, in the first playable zone. Now I want to put in our second objective, which is going to be here. And it is objective B, icon B, capturable alpha bravo. It is not visible at the beginning. Owner team is bravo. We keep it a circle. So we just put it here in front of this little church. And I think that's okay. And our secondary task is going to be to destroy an enemy transport vehicle. And therefore, we need a new unit. There is our transport vehicle. We place this here. And it belongs to our Bravo player 1. It is not visible at the beginning. And we do not have to change anything else. So, this is now our basic structure, which means we can now move into our script editor to set up the logic for our scenario or the story. So this is our script editor. And you can click on this question mark, which will give you a help window in which a few things are explained and describe what they are doing. But currently, at least for me, it is bugged. So I only can open this once. And after the second or third time, I'm being stuck in this help window. And then I have to Alt F4 the game. So make sure you always save everything you have done before opening your help window, because you can get stuck in it, which is actually not very helpful, to be honest. You can now create the story of your scenario on this grid by clicking with your right button on your mouse. You will get this node list, and on the left side there are different categories of nodes, and on the right you will find the nodes belonging in this category. And if you are looking for a certain node, you can just type into this search field and then type in what you are looking for. So everything in our scenario starts with a start node, which is actually not true. There are some nodes that you can make a check on start at activate on start, but in our case, everything starts with a start node. And we will find this start node under base nodes, and by clicking on it, it will appear. So what this node does is it creates a signal once the scenario has started and sends this out of this yellow connection to other nodes and activates those nodes. And then these nodes are doing things. So the first thing I want to show you is how to set up your economy in this game. At the beginning or at default, the player has 1000 money and 300 income. And if you do not want to change this, you can leave this part completely out, because the game will always use this default setting if you do not put in an individual rule. So to set up your own economy, you need under economy your economy nodes, and we want set money and set income. And then you can put in your income and your money. So in this case, we will use 900 as income and 250 as, it's 900 money and 250 income for our economy. And now you can just simply connect these to this start node, and now they will work. You have to put in a target player. In our case, it's player 1, of course, because if you want to make the scenario for only one player, it's now sufficient. But in our case, we want to do this also for multiple players. So the scenario can be played by 1 or either 2 players. And you can scale this up to 3, 4, 5 players. 5 is the maximum. So we need a little bit more stuff. So first of all, we want to know how many players are actually going to play our scenario. And therefore, we need a network node. Network players. So what this node does is it simply counts the number of players currently in our network or in the lobby. And if this is not working, it will fall back to a certain number. We can put in here, for example, 1. So if there is no network connection or the counting doesn't work, it will always fall back to the number 1 and will then send 1 out. If it counts 2, it will send out 2. If it counts 3, it will send out 3. So this is simply a network players counting node. But now we have to know, or to be more clearly, we have to make a rule that now applies for either 1 or 2 players. And therefore, we need a logical node, which is an equal AB node. So what this node does is it compares a certain input to a given number in our case. So we connect these nodes. It's a data node, so we have to connect green with the red. Start is activating it, therefore is the yellow. And for example, we want to compare this to, why can I not click in this? No, to the number 1. So what this does now is, if there is 1 player, so it counts 1, if A is 1, it is equal to B, the signal will be true. If it counts more than 1 player, for example 2 players, it's not equal 1, then the outcome will be false. So the signal goes out here. And now we can set up a rule for 1 player, which is true, or 2 players, which is false. If you want now more than 2 players, you have to rearrange this a little bit by Ctrl-Z, Ctrl-V. You can also copy those nodes. So for example, we would need, what's that? We need a few more nodes. So for example, this is now 2, this is now 3. So we would connect these nodes, and now if it's one player, it's true. If it's two players, it's true. If it's three, it's true. And that is the way how you can set up your economy for each player individually. So I haven't explained why we do this in the first place. We do this because sometimes your scenario is not scaling up with the amount of players. So for example, if there's one player with 1000 money and 300 income, your scenario is perfectly balanced for this amount of money and income. But if there are two players with the double amount of money and the double amount of income, this scenario is too easy. You can scale up the difficulty depending on the number of players in the scenario. It's a little bit more complicated, so we leave this out, but in our case, we're doing it by sharing the money and the income. So two players have just half the money and half the income. So what we are going to do is we put in here 450 and here 125 for our two-player setup. So we can simply Control-Z, Control-V. Of course, we need also our one-player standard setup. So what you can do now is you can connect these nodes directly to this true and equal. So this is a possible way to do this. But of course, you also have to change the team, the player. So this is alpha player 1. If there are two players, and this is alpha player 2. If there are two players, and now your economy is set up. You would be finished now. But in this scenario, I want to show you how storage nodes are working, which makes your whole node tree a little bit more clear, and it's not so confusing. So we can move this economy and source it out to a position that we maybe like. And now we are using storage nodes. So what is a storage node doing? A storage node stores a certain input or variable or state, different names for the same. So what we can do is we can say if we have one player which is true, we save this as one player. And if there are two players, we save this as two players. And now we need these nodes again. Control-Z, Control-V. And now these nodes are working like, you could explain this as a wireless connection. So as long as these nodes have the same name, they transmit what was put into them to another position on your grid. And now we have sourced out our economy. And this is how a storage node works. We will use these storage nodes in another part of our tree, but for now, this is our initial basic setup for our economy. And you can transmit whatever signal you want. You can use these storage nodes for various things. So, what comes next? So, as you maybe know, do not forget to save. Currently, our objective A is hidden. So we have to activate objective A. We have to make it visible. I mean, you could start with the visible objective A, but to explain it, it's hidden at the beginning. It's a tutorial. So therefore, we need an update task node, which is a gameplay node. And we can connect this node with our start node. And we can select objective. Sorry, I made a mistake. So first of all, of course, we have to make our objective A visible, but we have also our tasks, capture A, capture B, and destroy enemy transport, which we have to make also visible. So therefore, we make our task visible by update task, which is our task capture A. We change its status from hidden to active. So as soon as the game launches, the start node is triggering the update task node, which makes capture A visible. And then we have to make our objective visible, which is our object visibility node. Which is here. And we now can connect this to. So I move this a little bit further down so that we have space, so that this becomes our main root, you could say. And now we want to make objective A is visible. So now when you launch the game, the task is put into active state and your objective is now visible. Now we want to put in also something different, which is not necessary, but it's very useful. And this is UI fade in and out screen. Sorry, no, it's, yes, it's fade in and out screen. So, what is this for? We have to activate this at the beginning. And what this node does, it creates a black screen. You can put in your fade in time, but we want to start at the beginning with a black screen. So we put in a 0. We want this black screen at least for 2 seconds, and then it fades out for 1 second. So this is actually quite useful if you put in a lot of stuff in your scenario and you want to give the game a little bit of time for setting everything up. And this prevents stuff popping up on the screen of the player. So everything loads in and you have 2, almost 3 seconds of time to make everything visible. And it's just maybe, it's a little bit more like a quality of life feature. It's not really necessary, but it's cool. I think it's quite useful. You can use this, you can leave this. I just want to show it to you. So again, it's a tutorial. I want to show you a little bit of everything, but not all of it. And now we are going to test this. So we know we have 200 money and 250 income. Capture A has to be visible. So we save this. We can click on play. And now you have your black screen. You can see we have our playable area 1. There is our spawn point, so we can now spawn in some vehicles. For example, this Typhoon VDV. And we can move this vehicle in our objective A to capture it. But currently, nothing is happening. We also started at 900 and 250 income, so everything works properly. So as you can see, after capturing objective A, nothing is happening because we haven't made yet a rule. Therefore, but we want to change this now. So we go back into our editor. And now we are putting in our transition from part 1 to part 2. So what we are going to do is we need an event node on objective captured. And as I already said at the beginning, we do not have to connect this specific node with our start node because we can simply check this active on start, which initiates this node right at the beginning. So what does this node do? As soon as our zone, which is objective A, is being captured by the alpha team, it sends a signal. And the signal it is going to send is, of course, an update task. Because we want now our capture A set to success, because the player has captured objective A, so the task is fulfilled. And parallel to that, we want now to activate our other two tasks. So we need two more of them. We need two more of them. This is our capture B, which is now put into active. And this is going to be our secondary mission, which is destroy enemy transport, which is put also into active. So let me move this a little bit around. So these two things are triggered parallel. So capture B and capture A success, capture B active. And after the player gets his primary task, I want to give him also his secondary task, but not immediately. And therefore, I put in a delay node. Again, you have not to do this, it's just an example on how this delay node is working, and I can put in a certain amount of time. In this case, it's seconds, so after 1 second, he will get his secondary task. Now, I do not want that our objective A is still existing, so I want to hide it. Of course, you can keep it. For example, if you have a scenario in which the player needs to defend already captured objectives, you have nothing to do. But I want that objective A is going away once the player has captured it. So it's not existent anymore. And therefore, I also need an object visibility node. And now we make objective A not visible by unchecking this. But I want this to happen also with little delay. So what you can do is you can connect this maybe to our update task, which is that A is now a success. And the player can enjoy capturing A for at least 2 seconds before objective A is now not visible anymore. We have also to activate our second play zone because everything that is now happening here with primary and secondary tasks is in our second play zone. Therefore, we have now to activate our second play zone, and as soon as our second play zone is activated, the first zone is going to be deactivated because there can only be one active playable zone. You cannot have two playable zones. There can only be one active playable zone. At least the help window says that. I have to rely on this. I haven't tested this yet. Now we have done everything to finish our first part and activate our second part. So we will now test this. So again, do not forget to save your scenario. And once we have loaded in, we will spawn a fast unit. And we will fast forward. So what should happen is that as soon as A is captured, it should be invisible. After 2 seconds, our tasks are being no problem. So we have closed capture A. So we have to make capture B and our destroy enemy transport visible. Of course, we need our object visibility nodes. So we need to make B and the enemy transport visible. So therefore we need a few more of these visibility nodes. And I mean, you can rearrange these nodes as you want. So for our objective B, we want now objective B visible. And of course, after the delay of 1 second, we make now our unit visible, not an objective. And we have to click here and put in here our transport. So now we have a visible objective, we have a visible unit, and now we can click on save. And now we test it again. And we will now spawn our unit and fast forward. And now everything should work fine. I mean, we can also put in maybe a drone. Oh, we haven't activated the second play area yet. So as you can see, our play area is now bigger. Objective B is visible. Objective A went invisible. And maybe we can detect our unit. No, we cannot. So I probably made a mistake. Oh, did I forgot a check? Yes, I did. So this is for our transport. It will work. I do not test this again, but this will work. So this is now our basic structure for our second part, but now of course we have to close this too. So we need of course an on-objective captured. Sorry, that's not true. We need an event node called onUnitDead. So because our secondary task is to destroy an enemy transport, we have to make a rule for what happened after we destroyed this enemy transport, which is our onUnitDead node. And we can select our target unit here, which is just our transport. It is active on start, so we do not have to connect this with anything. And now we make another update task and can connect this And once we destroyed that transport, our destroy enemy transport is going to be a success. So this is how we close our secondary. Now we have to close our whole game. And therefore we need our own objective captured, which is in this case objective B by the alpha team. And after our one objective captured is triggered, it's also active on start, our game ends. So what we need is, where was the end node? I forgot. It's end the mission, or maybe I just no, I don't know. I've no problem. Therefore is our search. So after objective B is captured, we end the mission, but maybe not immediately. Maybe we want to put in also little delay, or maybe 1 second. And that's all. So now everything should be working. So this time I'm going to create a unit to oversee everything. And therefore I place a new unit, which is in our case an American recon unit, and I want a global hawk. I simply place it here just to make sure that our enemy transport is spawning. And now I can click on save and on play. And now the whole basic structure of our scenario should be working, which is faster, or the code is actually faster. So I maybe use this vehicle too. So we just capture A. And once we captured it, the rest is triggering. Our transport is spawning. And I'm just stopping this here because I want to destroy this transport. So now the transport is destroyed, which makes our destroy enemy transport mission into a success. And now we can capture B. And once we've captured B, 1 second delay, the game is ending. So that's it. So now back in the main menu, we have to move back into the editor. You can press escape and click on back to editor in this screen, but actually it will not work. In my case, nothing is happening. So we have to go back into our main menu and then just edit our scenario again. So now I'm going to show you how to place enemy units. But not only how to place enemy units, but also how you set up a different difficulty settings. So we go back to our beginning, and what we want to do is we want to place enemy units in this area, in these buildings, and maybe in the forest, to protect this site. and we want to create different unit setups for different difficulties. So we need also a gameplay node, and it is called get difficulty, and we activate this immediately at the beginning. And now we can connect to each difficulty different nodes. So what we are going to do is we are placing enemy units. They are invisible at the beginning, and we make them visible depending on the difficulty setting the player has chosen. So therefore, we need again two object visibility nodes. I want to move this up a little bit to have a little bit more space. And I want on the easiest difficulty no units at all. So we will just not connect easy with anything. For the medium, I want these units. Of course, we have to clear this. And for hard, I want another set of units, but also the units for medium. So I connect hard with our object visibility node at the top too. And now we have just to create our units. So we click on save, and now we go back into the editor. And what has happened now is it is currently bugged. So you cannot see those three-dimensional markings around your objects. And when you are clicking on units, nothing is happening. So this is always at the beginning of the editor. It's always the same. So I'm going to wait a little bit because it will solve itself. And then I will restart the recording. So I think I found a workaround. Once you click on play and just started the scenario and immediately move back into your editor, all these boxes will reappear. And now we can start to create our units, because these markings are actually very important for everything that comes now. So what we want is, we want enemy units protecting this area. And first, I'm going to create two groups. One group is for the medium difficulty, and the other group for the hard difficulty. And therefore I click on new unit, and we want to fight against the Russians. And first we need a recon unit, maybe the Razvedka, and then a little bit of standard infantry, and maybe these guys, not sure. So this is our medium difficulty, and for the hard difficulty we add a few tougher units. On E-class maybe also not that bad, so maybe we put an E-class into the medium group, and I want to call it, and maybe these guys. So now we have our two groups. We can select them all, and we want them all to belonging to the Bravo player. They are not visible at the beginning because we only want to make them visible for medium and hard, because on easy there are no units at all. They need to capture buildings they are near, and now you can see the markings in which building they are moving to, because they are always moving to the closest building. The rest we can leave, and now we have to create our two different groups. So this is our group A medium, and this is our group A hard. And now we can move them in a position where they are maybe useful. For example, the Radwetzka up in the woods, and our standard infantry in these buildings. These are our hard units. We will move our cornet up here, and we will deactivate capture near building, same for the Radwetzka, just to make sure they do not move. And now we are finished with our first area. So we can click on save, and now we can test this, but I want to test this with immortal units. And of course, I forgot to show you this. For example, you can change the loadout. Yes, the loadout. Maybe here, yes, you can change the loadout of your units by clicking on the unit itself, and then click on mods, and here you can choose what you want. So for example, we can make this cornet even stronger. And we do this. So now we have our tanks to test this this part. It's part of the act is visible, belongs to alpha player, and they are immortal, have infinite ammo, infinite fuel, and that's it. So now we click on save. So on our easiest difficulty, there should be no unit at all. Just going to test this really fast. So no units, as you can see are discovered by our global hawk. On our medium setting, there should be a few units, but not all of them. I forgot to make our global hawk. Oh no, I completely forgot. I haven't made that much mistakes in the German tutorial. I'm very sorry for this. Of course, as you maybe already have knew, we have to make them visible. And therefore we have to select our unit groups. So for medium, it's our group A medium, and for hard, it's our group A hard. So we have to save this, is visible. So now it should work. And then we make our drone also immortal, infinite fuel, not ammo. Click on save, click on play. And now they should be visible. Of course they are. Even shooting, but nothing is happening. So return to editor. And by selecting difficulty hard, we should have now a few more units. Which is also true. So everything works very well. So now we are actually doing exactly the same with objective B. So we are also placing two different groups. For hard and medium. So this should be enough, I think. So Bravo player 1 is not visible, capture near building. This is now B medium, and this is B hard. And now we just place them randomly. I don't want these to go into the buildings. So that's it. So these are our forces for objective B. And of course, we have to do this for B exactly as for 1. So we can just copy and paste this whole structure. And as soon as, we can connect this down here if we want. And as soon as our task is updated, we make our units visible. So this is now B medium, and this is B hard. So again, it doesn't really matter how you arrange this, it just has to make sense. So now we have done this. We can move on. Or maybe I also want 2 units hidden in the forests. Maybe here. Let's do this. Let's use these. We select them. Bravo player 1. And these are both group B hard. Of course, not visible at the beginning. So now I think it's okay. So now we have done this. We can maybe test this by using our tanks. So difficulty setting should be hard. Yes. And now we need to look if all the units are spawning correctly. So because these tanks are immortal, this should not take that much long. So we captured A, and now all the units spawned. Great. So everything works as intended. So what I'm going to show you now is how to make enemy units spawn and drive into the village and do all kinds of stuff. So first I have to make this zone a little bit bigger. Not the position, but its scale. And then I move it up. Maybe to here, I guess. Yeah, I think that's okay. So first of all, we need a spawn point for our enemy units, and I want 2 spawn points. I want 1 for medium and 1 for hard. So we place here our spawn point for our medium troops. So we need a new object, and I'm going to use this tag, because you can also use a tag as a spawn, and if you make a spawn location, it is visible like in the standard matches in multiplayer, for example. You will see the enemy spawn points, but of course I don't want this. I want them not be visible. I mean, they are visible and active, but I don't want them visible for the enemy player. So I'm using tags because tags are invisible. And I want one here. We will call this spawn medium. You can hide the arrow. And this is spawn hard. And now we need a tag those units can move to. So they will spawn here, and then they have to move to a certain point. So for spawn hard, I only want there to be 1 point. So I call this entry 1. Oh no, I call this entry 3 because we are going to have 2 entries for our spawn medium. And to be honest, I don't want to hide the arrow, because it's a spawn point. We actually need to know in which direction our units are spawning, but here we can hide, and we are creating 2 more tags, 1 here and 1 here maybe. And we call this entry 2 hide arrow, and we call this entry 1 hide arrow. So what these are now doing is they are spawning and they are moving to these entry points, and for spawn hard I want only 1 entry point, but for spawn medium I want a random entry point. So they will decide whether to go to entry 2 or entry 1. And now I'm going to show you how you do this in the script editor, and then we will have to add waypoints and a lot of other stuff. So we are going to need a difficulty setting, of course, and I'm going to show you what a subgraph is. So a subgraph is like a folder in a folder. So you can click on enter, and now you have a completely new grid. You have a subgraph enter node and an exit node, and you can move these around. We do not need the exit, but we need the entry. And of course, you can create something that produces an outcome, calculate something, whatever, and then of course you can put this out here. And the reason why we are doing this in a subgraph is because we want to keep our trees, our graphs as clear as possible. So you can save a lot of space with these subgraphs, and you can also save these as a template and reuse them. And this, what we are going to create here, is actually quite usable. You can use this how much, wherever you want, because, well, of course, you can create variations of it, but the base structure is quite simple because it's a spawn loop of enemy vehicles that you can use in various scenarios depending on what kind of story you want to tell. So of course, we will utilize the first two nodes up here. So our signal medium goes to the first, and our signal hard goes through the second, and also hard through the first, because of course we want to trigger both. And we can place it like so. And now we just have to connect this with our on objective captured, because of course this is all triggered as soon as objective A has been captured. And we call these the subgraph enemy spawn units. I don't know. And now we can select this subgraph, and now you see also the name. And now we need to create our logic in here. And it's a little bit more complicated as the stuff we already did, but I hope you will understand it. I will describe it step by step. So first of all, we want to spawn enemy units, and therefore we need a spawn node, and we select spawn multiple units. And what you can do here is first you select your target tag, which is in our case our spawn medium, because we're doing medium first. You could also select a target spawn point, which could be spawn point 1, or if you have an enemy spawn point as in a standard skirmish or multiplayer matches, you can do that, but in our case you have a target tag, and the player is of course Bravo player 1. And what you can do now is you can select under unit info multiple units, and you can just put them in by drag and drop. You can also, if you maybe want a transport vehicle, you can use this. You can click on it, you can open its cargo, and you can move in units, and can click on apply. And now once you have closed this and reopened it, you can see that there are now units in this transport, but this is quite static. So I want to show you how you randomize this a little bit. So I just show you how to do this, and therefore we need a random data node, which is a logic node, I think. Yes. So this is a random data node, and we need get what type of node is this? Get unit spawn data, and we just do this 2 times, and now we can connect this. So what this node does is it selects randomly between those data slots. So you can put in different data for each slot, and you can also select random with exclusion or consequently, which means that they are moving thrust just through them. But We keep it at random. And now we can actually select different units that will spawn randomly and make our scenario a little bit more interesting and increases its replayability. Again, it's not necessary, it's just a nice feature that I want to show you. So what we're going to do is we need enemy vehicles. I want just to use two different types, maybe BTRD, and we open its cargo and we put in Motostrelki, just to keep it simple. And I want to select another vehicle. Or at least the same, maybe. Maybe a BMOT. But why is it not? Oh, I made a huge mistake. Oh, I made a huge mistake. I made a huge mistake. I cannot read. Of course, we need get multiple units spawn data. And now we can select multiple units. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. So we will select our BTO or BTRD maybe, just two of them. That's too much, just click on apply, and that's the same. Now we have everything set up. Our first random unit, and then we select our second, which is maybe also an BTRD, but I know I want a different vehicle. Maybe we select a BTO, two of them, and we put in maybe mechanized rifleman. We have to use Russian units, of course. Or we can maybe put in a Motostrelki Igla. I think that's okay. Can I drag and drop this? No. Now. So now it should be okay. And we put this in our second data slot. So now we have our random vehicle spawn. So it will either be these or these. And they will spawn. Of course, you have to connect this. And of course, we have to activate this power medium setting. Without this, it wouldn't it wouldn't work. So the next thing we have to do is we have to put in a move transport node, which is a command. Of course, these are troop transports, and therefore we have to use our move transport. And of course, we have to activate this, and we can select for what kind of units this is. So we are selecting the units we randomly put in here and connect this to 4 units. And now we have here our target tag, which is the point the units are moving to. And I already told you that I made 2 tags for the medium units, so entry 2 or entry 1. So again, we create random data, so we can just copy and paste this, but this time we connect it with our target tag. You can put in here a single tag if you want, but we want to use a target tag. And now we need 2 get tag nodes, which are under function. So get tag, we need this 2 times, and we need more space. And now we put in here entry 2, entry 1, entry 2, and we just need to connect this with our data. And of course, we have also to activate this random data node with our spawn multiple units node. And I mean, we can leave this out, we can transfer this like that. So this is the right way to do it. Yes, so this is how we do it. So now our transports are moving to these tags, but we have to tell them what to do. First of all, they should move there fast by using the roads. Then we put in an aggressive radius, and depending on how big this radius is, if an enemy plops up, they will attack this enemy. So we make this maybe 500 meters. Transport behavior should be load in transport. During ride, stay loaded, but I want them to unload their troops when they are going to be engaged. Just different option. It doesn't really matter because we will not be in time in that village to engage the transports before they are unloaded, but I just put this in, and at destination I want the units to unload and enter random buildings just around them, and that's it. So what we are going to create now is what happens if this is failing. So for example, if the unit is going to be destroyed, or transport is going to be destroyed, what are the units going to do, and what are the transports going to do if one of the 2 transports is going to be destroyed. And therefore we need a second move transport node. And we connect this with our fail output. And for the unloaded units in this case, so for all the transports with unloaded units, we will keep our setting fast, load in transport, stay loaded, and unload and enter random buildings. We also keep the aggressive radius. And now we put up the condition for our surviving units, and therefore we need follow waypoint. We do not have a waypoint set yet, but once our transports have reached their entry tag, I want them to patrol around in that village randomly. So we will set up a waypoint construction that will do that. So for now, we keep this enter. Of course, our target tag is the same we get here. So we use the random selected data and connect this with this node. Forgot it, I'm sorry. And now we need to put in a rule for what the transport or the infantry is doing if they are going to be attacked. Because the AI is not really doing things at their own. So I want to use a unit ability nodes, which is a gameplay node, I guess. Yes. And we need 2 of these. So I want these units to sprint and then to smoke. So if there are units that have been unloaded, they're starting to sprint immediately, and then they're going to smoke. But there should be a little delay in it. So they sprint, they smoke. I have to connect this all. And they will use these abilities while they are on the move to their target tags. And this is going to be triggered also with a small delay. So I put this in here. I have to connect this with the fail input. Of course, we put 1 second delay into this. Sometimes it looks not selected. And I put this here to make it a little bit more visible. You see this can get very confusing. You have to keep a clear mind and think a lot of it. And I don't want to do mistakes again. But I think this will work. So, units are spawning, moving to a random tag. They're fast move, they will unload their troops, and then they will patrol randomly around. If this is a success, they will follow their waypoint. So, for the case the transport has been destroyed, they will, one of these transports is going to be destroyed. They will still move and unload at random buildings, and it's only for the unloaded units. And once they reach the tag, they will follow to the waypoint, follow up to the waypoint we have to create now, and if it fails after 1 delay, they create sprint order, and then after 1 second delay again, they will smoke to reach the destination, which is our random tag we created here. So this is how this all is going to work. So now we create our follow waypoint node, and to do this we actually have to create waypoints, and we will use new object and place our waypoints down here. And I will place multiple waypoints, because if I want them to patrol randomly, we need actually a lot of them. And the way how these waypoints are working is that you can select a certain waypoint and a route, yellow, green, red. I'm going to show you this. Or you just select much more random stuff. Maybe I need a waypoint up here too. So what you can do is, for example, if our units are now at entry 1 and they can start with waypoint 2, you can now say that from waypoint 1 they should go to waypoint 3. So you select next yellow path, waypoint 3. At waypoint 3 they should move to waypoint 4. Now they are moving immediately to waypoint 4. And here to waypoint 2, and from here it's going back to waypoint 1. Now you can say in our script editor, they have our waypoint target, which is waypoint 1, and then you can change priority path, and you can select random, or you can maybe select yellow. So what this means is that depending on how many connections you have made, they will either follow the yellow path or the red path or whatever, or they will just drive around randomly. And I want them to drive around randomly to create a little bit more variation. So what we are going to do is, we select waypoint 1 and add also, for the next part, waypoint 12. And on waypoint 12, we select waypoint 1 so that they can move back, and we will also select waypoint 13. And this goes now further and further. So that we can create a completely random traffic pattern. Of course, if you if you take your time, you can create more interesting routes, but in this case, I just want to create a random pattern. So it's not really important which point is selected with which. It's just important that every waypoint is selected with every waypoint which is near this waypoint. So I think this is almost done. Yeah, I think that's enough. So what the enemy vehicles are now doing is they just move either to entry 2 or to entry 1. They will move to waypoint 1 and then they will drive around randomly. And that's all that they are doing. Yes. So now back into our script editor. And now we have to set up a rule for what happens if those vehicles are dead. Because I want to show you how to create a spawn loop. Because maybe you want these units to respawn after the player has destroyed them. It depends on the scenario situation. In our case, of course, it's not necessary, because once the player destroyed those vehicles, it's highly the player will probably capture B and the scenario has been finished, but I just want to show you how to do it. And therefore we need again an event node on unit dead, and we have this to connect with our graph. So of course it's for the units we have spawned, randomly selected here, and in this case it is of course not active on start. It is going to be only activated once the units have spawned. And what we do now is we just would connect this with our random data input. So now the loop is complete. But we maybe want to put in a little delay. So what we are going to do is we connect this with our delay input. We give the player maybe 60 seconds or 30 seconds. For demonstrational purpose, I just want to put in 10 seconds, and then we connect it with our first input, which is at our random data node. So this is now how you would create a spawn loop. That's all. You just need on unit dead and reconnect it with your main entry of this whole spawn circle. The next thing I am going to show you is how you close this spawn loop in the case you want it to stop. And we want it to stop as soon as the player has captured objective B, so that he's not hammered with more units anymore. I mean, our game is finished after the player has captured objective B, but in your scenario, it maybe goes further on. So I don't know, but it's quite useful. And therefore, we need a logic node, which is called a gate. So what does this node do? This gate is, of course, open at default in our case. And once it gets an input to close, it closes. And it will not pass the signal. So we use this gate to stop our spawn loop. So what we are going to do is we connect our gate with our entry. So we are closing these connections. We are connecting this with our random data. And once the signal is going into our close, the signal is not passed. So this is how to do it. So once all of the units are dead, there's a delay of 10 seconds in which this whole loop is triggered again, because this goes right into the gate, into its input, and out of the gate, and it triggers again the random data node and the spawn multiple units node, because the gate is open by default and not closed. So now we need a signal from outside to close it, and this condition is that objective B has been captured. So we need a third connection. So on the second is again our hard difficulty, and our third connection, which is outside, this will be our condition for closing the gate that we have to put into our subgraph. And this is on objective captured. And therefore, we are using again a storage node, because we can save a certain state in here. So we can call this be captured. So we copy this, move it here, and now put it into this third input connection. And now we enter it. And now we can connect this with our close input. And now our spawn loop is getting closed by the condition be captured. That's all you have to do. That's all you have to do. So I actually don't know how to place this, but I think you see how this is working, how this is connected. So the next thing I want to show you is the once node, because this is also very useful. So currently we have the following problem. When B is captured, the whole spawn loop stops. Sorry, that's not the right beginning. So the whole spawn loop starts right at the moment objective A has been captured. So in the case you want to keep your objective and you want the player to defend objective A, it can happen that the enemy will recapture objective A. And now you have to make sure that recapturing objective A is not triggering this whole spawn loop again. So of course, if the enemy has captured A and now the player recaptures A, you get a new signal which creates a new set of vehicles, despite the fact that these vehicles are still alive, because this whole thing is open. And there are two different ways to do this. One way is to make a check mark. One way is to make a check mark on here on once. So this means that this signal created by on-objective captured objective A is triggered only once. But then you cannot make it recapturable by the enemy or by the player if the enemy has recaptured it. So you can leave this and put in a once node in your spawn loop, which means that it's the logic node, it's called once. So you just put this node between here. And what this does is it actually lets the signal pass only one time. And now the signal is kept in here. Yes, and it will repeat itself as long as this gate is open. But it is only activated once. I hope you understand that. And now this spawn loop for medium is finished. So what we are going to do is we just select everything. We press Ctrl Z, Ctrl V, and connect it to the hard input. And now we have, of course, to modify this a little bit. So for example, there is no random tag anymore because I don't want transports to spawn. I want vehicles to spawn. So we can also delete this and that. And what we are going to need is a move unit. It's a command, sorry. Move unit, because I want to spawn some tanks. And we connect this for units, for multiple units, and for a waypoint. In this case, it is not waypoint 1. Our target tag is this time entry 3. It's entry 3, and our start waypoint is waypoint 11. So we select waypoint 11. It's also random. Pathfinding is fast. Our aggressive radius is maybe 1000 because it will be mainly tanks, and tanks have a bigger range. But now we need 2 different setups. So I will use T90 Arena, 2 of them, or 2 Barbaris. Apply. So now on our hard difficulty setting, additionally to our medium troop transports, there will also be T90 Arena or T15 Barbaris. And we have to select a different spawn point, of course, spawn hard. And the rest we can keep. So now we have to test this. And once we did that, it's actually done. Nothing more to do. So Global Hawk is here. So first of all, I want to test the medium difficulty. So we move our tanks to A. I want to put this drone a little bit further up here, but we have to wait until this spot is activated. Now our BTRDs are spawning. And they are moving to this point in this case, unloading their troops. They will now move to random buildings. And now they are start patrolling around randomly. And even independently. So everything works fine. And now I want to destroy these. And now I have destroyed them, and now more of these are coming in. So everything is working fine. So now we will repeat this for the hard difficulty. and click on play. And I hope that everything worked correctly. I mean, it's a very simple scenario, to be honest, but I think it's a good setup to show you the fundamentals, I would say, the basics. Now the tanks get their attack order, and they will attack us, we destroy them, and they will spawn again immediately. It's T-15 Barbaris. Why are they not moving? Oh, I think it's because these are transports. Maybe we have to select another type. Yes, they are moving. They are also not moving. Oh, I think I know what the problem is. I mean, they moved in the first place. I'm not sure what's happening, to be honest. If I made a mistake. So they need at spawn hard. Target attack is entry 3. Maybe it's the aggressiveness radius. Maybe it's too high. I'm not sure. Fast. At destination, nothing. Random, waypoint 11. I think this should work, to be honest. Maybe, maybe it was just bugged. But I have to make sure that everything is working well. It's now the third time I'm doing this. I did it first in advance for the German version. Then I did it in the German tutorial, and now I done it in the English version, so now they are moving. So they're moving randomly around. I hope. Yes, they are. They are moving randomly around. We are going to destroy this tank. Now I want to destroy this tank, and now they are spawning again. Maybe because there is no rule for what they need to do after I destroyed them, or no. I think it was just bugged. It works. Everything works fine. So, our scenario is finished. We did it. You did it. And just to remember you can scale this up into infinity. Of course, there are a lot of different nodes. I would recommend just go in here, look at these nodes. You can experiment with them. It's, at least in my case, more often try and error than doing it right in the first place. But of course, there are a lot of missing explanations. But I hope this tutorial is good enough for you to use this as a basis in the future for your own scenarios. And of course, you can now quit after you saved everything. And you can set up a picture for your scenario. You can select your difficulty depending on what kind of difficulty you want, and you can select your the deck you want to use. Of course, you can also create specific decks for your scenario. It's not that difficult. And you can then play. And of course, you should do this before uploading it to, okay, with our immortal tanks. We kept our immortal tanks, so this is going to be very easy. Also kept our immortal drone, but now it looks a little bit different. Now it's the real thing. Of course, you can now spawn your units in your deck. But yeah, I think I showed you enough to use this in your own scenarios. So bye bye, have fun.